Okay, so this is reading 842 for you, RH, and you asked me for a general reading, and there were a couple of other things that you pointed out in terms of practicality. Now, I've already mentioned to you my state of discomfort about doing a general reading, so we'll see what happens for you. We start off here with this Ogham, and this is holly or Tanya, and holly is in the position that themes your whole reading, but holly is about obstacles. Holly is about self-sabotage. It's an Ogham view that talks very much about things not always going according to plan, but that's not always because other people put obstacles in your way, but it's because you put obstacles in your way. Sometimes it's about limited self-esteem, or limited self-confidence is probably a better term. It's about how you second-guess yourself and don't see yourself as being good enough to achieve the things that you really want to achieve. It's about you having tremendous skills, and there are some really good intuitive skills in here actually that I can see, but that you don't utilize them as best as you can, because you keep double guessing about whether you're good at using those intuitive gifts and so forth. I'm going to pick up on this a little bit more as we go through this reading for you. Over here we have Heather or Ur, and these three staves here talk about the last 12 months or so. Heather is actually about love, it's about partnership, it's about companionship, it's about joy, it's about sharing, and sometimes that's with another person and denotes a beautiful strength of relationship. Quite often that's about, as well, or instead of, that's about yourself. It's about a greater understanding of who you are and what your contribution to the world is. Now, I have to be really honest here and say that this is puzzling me, because I'll wait for the Oghams to tell me this. They don't always work in logical order, I have to tell you that as well. Often they'll dart around all over the place and chuck little bits in that seem completely out of flow of where we were going. So I'll trust that will happen. But here I'm concerned that they're giving me this, but I can't understand why. You mentioned that you were considering leaving a long-term relationship, which would indicate that you are not happy in that relationship, but that what the Oghams are saying are that you are aware of what is likely to make you happy in terms of relationship. And so the choice that you will make, that you want or are considering making about leaving a relationship, is less about the unhappiness or the unhappiness is not the right term, they're telling me. Lack of happiness is a better term, they're telling me. That it's not about leaving because of a lack of happiness. It's equally as much or more so about potentially leaving that relationship because you're aware of what it is that you actually do need in a relationship, or outside of a relationship, and you know that in order to leave, that will give you what it is that you need. Over here we have pine or ilium, and that's sitting over the top of elder or ruis. Now, elder is very much about, its classic stuff is about regret or shame. For you, I don't get necessarily either of those coming through. Perhaps an awful lot of questioning about, have I been doing the right thing? Particularly in terms of relationship. What the heck am I staying here for? What do I contribute to this? What is my contribution? How do I improve that, or how do I change that? But also about, what the heck have I been doing? It's that whole question of life stuff. What is my purpose in life? That kind of stuff, which has been hitting you more and more lately, particularly in the last 6 months, they're telling me that whole question about what is my purpose, that not just in terms of relationship, I'm talking much more generally here. What is my contribution to the world? What is my contribution to community? And more importantly, what is my contribution to my own self-growth? So that it keeps coming through quite strongly here. And sitting over the top of that is pine. And this is what I can sense here, is that in the last 12 months or so, there has been a growing need within you to start thinking about what are my updated, if you like, the shifted focus for the goals that I need. That I'm aware that life changes over, our purpose of life changes over the lifespan, and that what they're telling me is that in the last few years or so, you've begun to feel differently about what your purpose in life is. And that it's more so in the last 6 to 9 months or so that you've really begun to say, okay, well, enough of this thinking about, but what actually are my goals for the coming 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and that they are radically different than they were 5 years before. And that's taken you a fair bit of time to come to some form of understanding about. You've known that it's there, but you've been struggling with that, and haven't wanted to accept that. But in the last 6 months or so, it's really become a time for you when you've really begun to say, well, actually, I can't fight this anymore. Clearly there needs to be some massive changes here. And it's no longer about me supporting other people. The time to support me is fast coming. This is the Ogham stave alder or fian, and it sits in the middle of your reading, and this kind of sits about where you are now, and this is about advice. It's about giving and receiving advice. Now, Elder is just butting in here and saying to me that you've always been in the position in the past where you have given support to other people, where you have given advice. Your role at work, your role in your partnership, your role in the community and in your family is not so much a matriarch necessarily, but certainly a position whereby people will ask you, well, what do you do about this, and how do I do that? So you've been I guess a hub of support to other people, but the time is fast coming when you need to be the hub of support from other people, and you're beginning to recognize that it's not always about giving to other people, it's about also giving to self. It's about giving to you. It's about finding the position in the community. I'm talking not just financially and vocationally, I'm talking about spiritually as well. It's about finding that position, finding that contribution that you can give to yourself that fulfills your own soul, that fulfills your heart's desire. And that soul purpose, that heart's desire has changed in the last couple of years. And as I mentioned here, you've been struggling with that, and now you're beginning to recognize, actually, it's okay, I can have a change. And it just means some massive, practical, tangible changes, but they're really important in order for you to sing the way you need to be doing so now. Okay, so over here we have sail or willow. This is in the position that themes your next 12 months. And this is very much about intuition. It's about gut instinct. It's about magic. It's about flexibility. It's about femininity. It's about trusting psychic gifts that you have. And you have considerable psychic gifts. You have considerable intuition, considerable ability to sense the need and the holes, the needs in other people. You've often ignored the messages that have come through your own intuitive capabilities about your own needs. And so in the coming 12 months, I'm really going to encourage you to focus your intuitive gifts, your psychic gifts, your spiritual gifts, whatever the terminology is that you want to use, as a means of developing yourself. as a means of recognizing that the way you live your life, and we're talking here about job, where you live, who you live with or don't live with, how you make a living, you know, all of that kind of stuff, is a manifestation of the inner core, the heart, the soul, the inner concept of who you are. And you've been denying that for the last couple of years. So Sale here says you need to make the changes in your life that enable you to manifest who you really need to be. So if that means that you retire with or without funds, so be it. But you won't be retiring. You'll actually be shifting the purpose of your life. If that means leaving your partner to go and do other things and to finally be free, then so be it. If that means that you change roles, if that means that you change a spiritual path, if that means that you start growing your own vegetables and sharing them with the locals in your community and bartering and all sorts of stuff, then so be it, if that's what makes your heart sing. So this is very much about you taking control again of your life, but doing so in such a way that enables you to become all that you are capable of being, and that will mean practical changes. Now, sitting over the top of that is gorse or on, and underneath that is dewar or oak. And I'm just going to speak very quickly about these three here, which are also about the next 12 months ahead, and then I'll pull it all together. Gorse is very much about living in the now. It's about sexuality. It's about freedom of expression. It's about not making plans, long-term plans for the future. It's about experiencing the now. It's about freedom. So, you know, you get that whole kind of picture of exploration and growth and development and all that kind of stuff, but for the sake of self-development, not necessarily for the sake of a bigger bank balance or to support other people. Dewar or oak is very much about hard work. It's about ethics. It's about giving and giving and giving and giving. It's about dedication to tasks. There's a flip side to dewar though, and it's about the potential for burnout. So you have the potential to give and give and give and give. As we talked about here, you tend to be the hub of support for other people. But in so doing, you can have a tendency to burn out. Oak is very much about, if you think about willow or sail, which is this one here, willow is very flexible, you know, goes with the flow, that kind of stuff. But oak is not. It's very strong, it's very straight, it's very hard wood. And so it will give and give and give, but in a storm it will finally snap. So for you, that's about balancing the needs of life. That's about balancing the need to fulfill the bank balance, because, you know, let's be honest, that money is not the be all and end all of life, but it is a token that enables you choices in what you want. So it is important in that manner, and for you it's really important in the coming 12 months that you balance that need with the need for self-expression. And then finally down here we have aspen, and this kind of underpins the year ahead. This themes it, willow or sail, which is fantastic because that's, you know, all about that intuitive stuff. Aspen is a little bit about fear and hesitation. So what I'm getting here is that for you, let me just kind of recap because they're just kind of bombarding me a bit now. So the last year or two has very much been about a shift in consciousness for you, such that previously it was all about supporting other people and giving to other people and feeling that that was okay. And in fact it was okay. You know, that was your purpose, and that was okay. But in the last couple of years you really begun to realise, hey, I need different things now. I need different people. I need a different way to contribute to the community and to myself. But you've been really struggling with that, and it's been so difficult because, you know, there's that whole moralistic issue about, do you leave a long-term relationship, you know, and what are you going down this spiritual path for when that's not the mainstream spiritual path? And why on earth would you pack in a job that is stable and that gives you security? You know, all of those kind of issues around what you should do versus what you need to do for yourself. You know, what society expects of you versus what you need to do for you. And so in this coming year, it's going to be very much about you finding ways to shift what you do in the world so that it works, so that it moves much more towards what it is that you need at a core. And that will mean making massive changes. But you need to balance that and not just go careering off the cliff. So what they're saying here is you don't leave your partner right now and chuck your job in and move house and go and find, go off into some Buddhist retreat somewhere in India or something or other and give away all your possessions. You don't go hell for leather into something. This is about, there's no point planning this, because this one here, Gorse, is not about planning, but it is about being sensible, and which is Oak here, and saying, okay, first of all, identifying what it is that's important to you at a soul level, at a core level. So is that about self-sustenance and living in a way where you support yourself, with your own vegetables and, making your own cloth and, all of that kind of stuff? Or is it about dedicating your life to a new spiritual path? For you, I don't see that. Actually, I see much more about, it's about sustainability, and it's about honouring your heart, and about really living to your core. So what does that look like? And if that means that you have to alter your relationship status, then you need to do so, but you need to do so gently, and you need to do so tactfully, and you need to do so with decorum, and you need to do so with dedication, and with love. So this doesn't come out of hatred or tactlessness or sheer bloody mindedness. It comes out of an understanding that this is what you need for you, and whilst you can continue to support and love other people, you also need to continue to support and love yourself. I'm hoping that kind of makes sense. That's what they're throwing at me. Your Druid Animal Oracle card is Hawk, or Subach. Beautiful free spirit again, that whole theme of being a free spirit again. And hawk is very much about not worrying about the little things. Now, if you think about a hawk, he's flying in the sky, and what he's doing is seeing the bigger picture, and that's for you not about planning necessarily, but it's about targeting. Hawk will see his prey and target and go for it. It's about targeting for you what's important for you. So it's about prioritizing what's important for you spiritually, for your heart, for the bank balance, because as we talked about, that gives you the choices to do the other things that you want to do. It's about finding a new community of people that support you. Hawk also really encourages you to spend some time in meditation, to think and spend some time in the sun. Just soak up the warmth of the sun in peace, quiet, tranquility, and to also look at your ancestral roots. What is your family's history? Where do your ancestral roots lie? Hawk is very much about that. That might be thinking about genealogy and so forth. But what did your mother's mother's mother do? So Hawk is very much about that as well. So he's very much about balance, planning, gentle preparation that we talked about before, and bringing new motivation and inspiration. So the key for you is to recognise that the next 5 years are about you fulfilling what is important to you, not selfishly necessarily, but certainly understanding that you are equally as important as other people. And so you will never be happy if you deny what is important to yourself in favour of giving constantly to other people, and you've become acutely aware of that. So now is the time to make change. Now, your Celtic birth tree is oak or dewar, a really sacred tree. And oak people are very steadfast, they're very resourceful, and as I talked about before, they're very much about giving to other people. They're the ones that they're the people that others come to ask for advice and for support. So oak people are very, very determined people. They're self-motivated, and they tend to be the inspiration for other people, and they're natural born leaders. They're usually very calm, but if they're provoked, they can have a bit of a wicked temper on occasions. And they tend to be, people tend to be a little bit stubborn. Other people will often see them as a little bit stubborn, but they're also the teachers and the managers of the world. Your Celtic birth deity is the Dagda. Now, if you think about the Dagda, very strong, very determined, often also seen as being quite stubborn. So, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And particularly in the coming months, you will need to have that degree of resourcefulness and dedication to task. Other people are not going to agree with some of the choices that you make. So you need to be strong in those choices. And you need to stand up for what it is that's important for you. So Dagda will be a very useful deity for you to look at and be, I guess, a bit of a mascot, for the want of a better phrase, for you. And your Celtic birth animal, totem animal, for the want of a better phrase, is the wren, who is also really fantastic animal that has the ability of resourcefulness, very, very clever, very intellectual. So I encourage you to have a look at that. So I hope that has given you a little bit of inspiration for the year ahead, and I look forward to hearing any feedback that you might have for me about that as well. All right.